Just by pressing the clutch, it goes into second. And here we are, the 6-cylinder in front of our eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, good day. This morning you join me from the Yacht Club of Monaco, where I will show you an interesting car. Over the course of the years I've had the opportunity and the pleasure of driving many cars, but never something as old as this one. 1933. So let's dive in this piece of British automotive history. In front of us we have an MG K2. Now MG was definitely one of the most famous British car manufacturers, and there was a time in history where there were more than 100 of them. Now MG has completely changed their business models nowadays, but we will not dive into that today. Instead we will focus on this beauty right here. Now this is an MG K2, which was part of the K series, probably the most prestigious of the MG series of all. Now the K3 was the most extreme of them, is the one with the best racing pedigree. The K1, on the other hand, was more of a grand tourer, so to say, to put it in today's words. It was a 4-seater car, while the K2 was in the middle. Now something very special about this K2, as you can see here, is that this is the chassis number 1. You will find also here on the side some specifications of the engine. Of course, it's a 6-cylinder, about 1.3 liters, and being supercharged, actually I will show you where the supercharger sits, which is right here at the front, directly mounted on the crankshaft, if I'm not mistaken, gives the car almost the double of its power, because this same powertrain was mounted on other MG models, including the K2 and K1, producing about 45 horsepower, while this version right here, thanks to the supercharger, goes up to 110 more or less. So that's definitely a big power increase. Something else we can notice on the car that will definitely show the racing pedigree and the sporty soul of this car are these big drum brakes. If you look at cars of this era, different kind of cars, of course, that were not meant to racing, that were not meant to go as fast as this, you will notice that the brakes were way smaller. While here instead, we have very big drum brakes. Having a look at the interior, we can see that the whole dashboard is heavily influenced, so to speak, by the aviation theme in a way. And something very interesting, but we will see more of that on the drive, is the gearbox, as we have a 4-speed gearbox, which is actually pre-selected. As you can see, the car is drawing a bit of a crowd, which is always good to see. It means that the car is interesting, and of course that's always a pleasure, regardless of the type of the car. So we will get back to the gearbox in a second, but it's definitely an interesting way to work. Now when it comes to other interesting aspects of the car, we have here a 3-liter oil reserve, which means that if by any chance you need more oil because of whatever reason the car has drank a bit too much, or perhaps you have a leak, you can just press a little button and the car will be fed some engine oil. At the back we see that we have 2 fuel caps, and that's not because we have 2 tanks. The tank is only one, but for convenience reasons they put 2 so that you could fill her up from whichever side. We see the exhaust coming here from the side, of course 6-cylinder, so we see the collector right there, and then it ends with this tail shape at the end. Very peculiar. Almost a teardrop shape for aerodynamic purposes, of course, with the car ending in a very tiny fin, let's say, at the back. So with the help of the owner, Nicola, we will now open the engine bay. And here we are, the 6-cylinder in front of our eyes. So perhaps even more interesting is having a look at the engine bay on this side. Now here we can see the conduct where the air will come in directly from the compressor, which, as I've shown you earlier, is sitting right there at the front. So the air comes right here. And then as you can see, we have a mini carburetor sitting on the top, because of course when you're starting the car you don't have a lot of air coming in. So that is used exactly for that, to mix the air and the gasoline at the beginning so that the engine can start. A few more interesting things is that we have a few spare spark plugs sitting here on the side, and a little tap with the oil connected to the oil tank that I told you as a reserve, so you can put your little, let's say, tank and open it up so that you can refill the engine with oil.
sbagli, vero?
Sì, sì, sì,
Da fare la
chiaro.
bassa.
Ottimo. So it's now time for me to take the K2 on the road. Ok. Devo ridire tutto quello che ho detto perché stavo filmando al contrario.
Vai, vai.
So driving the MG K2. As you can see, I just changed gear without my hands because I pre-selected the second, and then when I release the clutch, when I press the clutch, automatically it changed. Now braking times can be a bit scary because you really have to consider braking much in advance. And starting actually is a bit tricky because you have to really, the clutch releases at the very last second. So look, I'm now in first. Just by pressing the clutch, it goes into second. It's definitely interesting driving a pre-war machine, and the engine really screams. What makes it interesting also is the very big steering wheel. Now this car actually have blinkers which you activate using this little switch right here. And I have to say the steering wheel is quite direct. Now the turning radius is not the best, after all this is a racing car. Mi fermo al piazzale lì davanti. Well, it is Monaco, so I have to let people go, but it's not exactly what I would like to do. I mean, after getting used to it, the pre-selector is actually a very interesting thing. It's very useful and very easy to do. And it also works when you're downshifting, which is quite interesting. Something I've noticed also is that when you... spegniamo, let's turn it off so it's easier to understand. When you actually put the third and you pre-select the third and then you let the clutch go, it actually stays a bit stuck, so it takes some time until she comes back to your feet, and that's a bit of a strange sensation. But overall, what an experience driving a pre-war racing car. Wow, thank you, Nicola. So guys, what an experience. This was the first time that I ever drove, actually that I even sat, for what matters, in a car this old. But let me tell you, these sensations are definitely unique. Being behind the wheel is a completely different story. Of course, there's the engine, there's the sound, there are the vibrations, there are the smells. And then the handling. I mean, I didn't go that fast because we are in the middle of Monaco, but my friend who's the owner, who knows the car very well, did give it a bit more beans. And I can tell you, you can feel that the car actually handles pretty well, which when you look at it, you might be surprised, and the tires are thin, and you know, the car is not a modern car, but back in the day, it was a racing car. So of course, there is that pedigree she had to handle. And that's the whole point of the pre-selector, because when you're approaching a corner, you need two hands on the wheel. So that's why you pre-selected it on the straight, so that when you have to downshift or upshift, you just press the clutch and it goes in and it changes. What an experience. So really, thank you, Nicola, for allowing me to drive such a precious piece of British engineering. Wow, I definitely enjoyed that. And something else that I would like to point out is that this registration number right here is the original one from 1933.